Yep, I see I can share my chart.
Hello everyone. Welcome to my channel. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And I have, for the first time, hopefully not the last time, a very special guest who I have been following for quite a long time. This is Mr. Gareth Soloway, and he is a pro trader with over 20 years experience. He's also an expert in studying the technical charts and the chief market strategist in the moneystack.com. Welcome to my channel, Gareth. Thank you so much for joining me today.
That's my pleasure, and thank you for having me.
So I wanted to invite you to have this conversation mainly because, by all means, I am not a financial expert, nor crypto expert, or any of that topic expert. However, the subject of money and very, very big changes that is happening right now in the world, connected to politics and many other aspects going on at the same time, I thought I want to bring someone who actually spent so many years of analyzing the markets, the precious metals, the cryptocurrencies, and any other assets as well. So where do we begin, Gareth? I was thinking to start with BRICS, but I will not start with BRICS, even though it's very important. That new power emerging in the world right now. I want to start with Euro, because I'm in Europe now. I'm in Poland, which is part of European Union, doesn't have a Euro currency. But as you very well know, the Euro is sinking. We have this, at this moment, 0.99 cents to dollar, which is, I think, one of the lowest that ever been. And my first question would be this. Do you think, it's actually double question within one question. Do you think that sinking Euro will bring the artificially strong dollar down? And do you think the Euro is sinking because they actually want to implement the CBDC in Eurozone first? Sorry for a long question.
Wow, that's a good question. So I'm not sure about the CBDC there in terms of whether or not that's their goal. I think that honestly, the weakness in the Euro has to do with a lot of geopolitical aspects, meaning that we know that Europe is being affected by Russia shutting off the gas to Europe and natural gas prices spiking dramatically. And I also think that in general, the US dollar strength, which is causing a lot of the weakness in the Euro, that's a flight to safety, right? So we see that in general, when people are uneasy about Russia, whether it's China or anything else, or even the global economy, there's a general flight to the US dollar, which by its meaning is going to weaken other currencies like the euro and the yen and the pound. Now, I will say this, and this is a big thing. The US dollar today looks like it may have put in a short-term top, which means the euro may start to gain traction over the next couple days to the next couple weeks. And I can show a quick chart on this, but really what we've seen here, and let me bring up my charts for everyone to kind of view.
Do I have to do some sharing? No, I don't. Oh, no, great. Okay, perfect. Okay, I see it. Yep. Yeah. Wonderful.
Perfect. So what you can see here is that this is the US dollar, the DXY. And in the overnight, this is a 24-hour chart. The overnight, the dollar was spiking again, and the S&P futures, the markets, the equity markets were selling off. And then look at what's happened here. We started to see this big rollover in the US dollar. And again, if we go to the euro, let's look at the EUR USD here. All right, you can see that the euro is starting to spike dramatically. And if we go to the daily chart, this is the 10-minute chart, so it's an intraday view, but we can see that the euro, and I'll erase these trend lines, the euro is very, very oversold, very, very oversold, right? We're at lows that have not been seen in basically over 10 years. And so my expectation is actually for the dollar to fall here and actually the euro to gain some traction in the near term.
All right. So as I want to emphasize on this, I really am not a financial expert, not in economics at all. I'm just using my logic and common sense, Gareth, honestly. That's how I look at this. So petrodollar was strong because of the trading with oil, and it was the main currency used for that kind of trading. Now the power is shifting towards the east. So we have Russia, we have China, we have India, we have BRICS, right? That is where the power is shifting. So the petrodollar, as a definition of it, is already losing it, right? That strength. How long you see the dollar, American dollar, actually holding on to certain level of value, or do you see this eventually collapsing or going down? How does it look like?
Yeah, so I think that what you'll end up seeing is that once the Federal Reserve finishes their tightening policy, so their interest rate raising policy, and I think what's going to end up happening is the US stock market, the US economy is going to go into a recession. And the kicker is going to be, the issue here is going to be that the Federal Reserve, with inflation as high as it is, and even if it comes down a ways, the Federal Reserve won't be able to print us out of the next recession until it gets very, very bad. And that's what you're going to end up seeing as being the issue for the dollar, is that there will be a point where the Fed, even with slightly higher interest rates, will then, slightly higher inflation, will have to start printing again. And that's going to be the demise of the dollar. So I do think, again, this is a very long-term view. Understand that right now the dollar is still king. It is still the strongest currency in the world. But over the longer term, the dollar will start to decline against other currencies. I still think the Chinese yuan is probably slated to be the next reserve currency.
Actually, that was one of my questions for you. Okay, so if you could give like a time frame from your charts, is there a way you can predict, because those politicians are kind of unpredictable, but can you predict, let's say, in the next year or 2 years? Because in Europe, the situation looks really bad, because of the energy situation now. The infrastructure of Europe is completely shaken, right? We're talking like the production lines and all of this, many companies will be closing. So the value of euro, isn't it? Because there's something to trade, right? There's a strength in that currency. So now, it's all affecting, because also trading with United States, with the dollar. How is this going to be?
So I don't think the dollar is going to lose its reserve currency in the next couple years. I do know things are very rough in Europe, and that's due to the gas shortages and everything like that. But I do think we're near max fear. And I want to show you this, and this is just a little side note here, is one of the things that at least I pay attention to is price action. And if I flip my charts up again and we look at natural gas, so let's type in natural gas here. All right. And again, this may not be what you're experiencing on the ground in Europe. And again, we have to take that with a grain of salt. So you guys obviously are having experiences. But when Russia shut off the rest of the Nord Stream 1 pipeline last Friday, the natural gas price, at least here in this chart, didn't rally. And what that tells me, and look at how it's collapsed. So natural gas is starting to come down. So what it's telling me is that the market, investors, big money, are starting to think that the fears of a gas shortage in the winter are overblown, and it may not be as bad, or maybe there's a solution that's going to come from this that will be a positive and drive natural gas prices down. So that's something interesting that I'm paying attention to on the price action. And remember, I'm a very technical trader, so I'm looking at specific price action, not so much the news, as the news can sway our emotions, but more so, what are the charts telling me? And the charts, at least for natural gas, they're coming in a little bit, and that is something I'm paying attention to quite a bit.
Okay, so now let's go into something that actually I know more about, and that is precious metals, because I still believe in power of gold, and I still believe there will come the power of silver finally. Can we talk about this, Gareth? Because I've noticed something. I believe it's also manipulated. There is some kind of pressure on the precious metals, even though it looks to me like gold is kind of holding on, like certain level. Can you give us your analyst here and predictions, let's say again for the next, let's say, year maybe, or how the gold will react price wise as well, if you can tell us? to the situation?
So I'm very, very bullish on gold. I think gold is giving us a rare opportunity here to get in at levels where it hasn't fully reacted to the upside that's coming yet. If you think about how much inflation there is in the world, gold hasn't really done a whole lot. Now, if you're looking at gold in terms of euros, it's performed well. In terms of dollars, it's down a little bit on the year because the dollar has been so strong. But overall, the bigger picture is a bullish consolidation pattern. And I'll show my chart here. And just to give you guys a sense of this, is that basically what you're creating on a bigger time frame. And I'm going to go to the weekly chart even here. So you had this big move up from 2018 to 2020. And then notice how the last 2 years, you've just been going sideways, down, up, down. This, when you consolidate sideways like this, inside of a bigger move up, that's known as a bull flag or bullish consolidation. And if you look, interestingly enough, at the 1970s and gold's reaction, mid 70s to 80s, when inflation got really bad, this is almost identical to what happened there. And gold ended up going up, I think, about 1,000% from that point within a few years. Now, I don't necessarily think gold's going to go up 1,000%. I think with crypto out there, that takes a little away from it. But I certainly am expecting that you're going to see a breakout above this high on gold, and you're going to see a big move, probably to 3,000 over the next year or so, and then maybe even 5,000 to 5,000 over the next couple years.
And that's what I want to ask you, because I've heard you saying that, and I instinctively, really, not having any chart, agree that we are going soon to see 2,250, let's say, per ounce. Okay, because now we are like around $1,700 per ounce. So do you see this in a chart in the past? If the certain threshold of the price is crossed, because I wonder, because we already went over $2,000 per ounce, and then it was pushed down again. So when there's this moment, Gareth, when it's not going, like, let's say it crosses 2,000 or above, and it's not going below that number, and then it just goes up.
Yeah. So basically what you have is a channel, right? So this is a parallel channel horizontal line here with a horizontal line here. And so what you're going to look for is a break of this level right around that 2065 level per dollar per ounce. And when that happens, that's going to be the trigger for the next big move up. So right around 2065. And by the way, this is very normal. When you have a high pivot after such a dramatic run and a big pullback, it's very rare you go up and break out right away. What usually happens is you go up, you hit that resistance, this is resistance, and you pull back again. It takes a few hits of that level to really break through it to the upside. So I do think that's coming. It just takes some time and consolidation. My understanding of economics likely tells us that once the Fed is done hiking, because the economy weakens and inflation is still here in the US above 2%, which is what they wanted, it's probably going to be 4 or 5%. That's going to be the rush for gold. You're going to see gold really start to take off, because once you get a dollar that's not going up, and once you get interest rates that aren't continuing to go up, that's a bull move for gold coming.
Do you think we're going to see it before the end of this year, or you more into like 2023?
I would say the breakout's going to be 2023. So I think into year end, you may move back up towards 19, maybe 2000. But my guess is it'll be 2023 first quarter. So the first 3 months of 2023 when a breakout could occur.
I was listening a while ago to Jim Rickards, and he was saying that within the next 5 years, 1 ounce will be, from his calculation, will be around $15,000. Wow. Do you think this is realistic? I mean, how do you see that going up from 2000? You said 5,000, like there are like jumps, right? Like certain levels.
Yeah, I mean, 15,000, it sounds like a hit piece in terms of, like, sometimes people say things to get clicks on the internet. It's very well could happen, but I mean, that would be cataclysmic. Like if you have the global economy go into a depression or something very, very bad, then yes, I think that's that scenario where you could get a major move where everyone's just going and buying gold. It's a physical asset that you can hold in your hand that has value. But aside from that, it's hard for me in 5 years to see 15,000 on gold. That would be remarkable. I would love it. I hold gold myself, so I would love that.
Yes. So what would you say is more realistic number?
I think 5 to 7,000 in the next, but in 5 years is more realistic. I mean, that would be basically 150% or so return, which is very good for 5 years. With the printing of money probably restarting at some point, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Okay, so now let's talk about silver in relationship to that gold moving that way. How this will affect silver?
Yeah, so I think silver is right now at a major level. So a couple things to go over. Let me get rid of some of these lower trend lines. Number one, silver just hit this trend line. If you connect this high through this high through this high, we just touched it here. And then you have these lines, which are parallel. And we also just got into that lower range. So to me, that was a glaring buy signal on silver, right? We just hit those levels. So far, silver's rallying today. Nice little move up as the US dollar falls. I also think that silver is making a bull flag. It's a little bit more downsloping than the gold one, but gold and silver generally trade in the same direction. So I think if gold is headed up, then silver is likely going to head up as well. So I think silver will have another major bull move, just like it did back. I think that was in what, 2010-ish, 2011. I think you're going to get another super spike like this, but probably not again until 2023 or so, into mid to late 2023.
Okay, so it looks like gold is going to pull the silver up a little.
Yeah, that's what I think as well.
Okay. Now I want to ask you about cryptocurrency. You actually, I remember a few months ago on Kitco, and I like your talks with David so much because you really have great rapport and so much information there. So I remember when you said that Bitcoin will be around 22,000, and I forgot what was the value of Bitcoin then. I mean, what was the price? But it was much higher than that 22,000. And I remember David was like, no, impossible. And now we actually are like around 18,000.
Yeah.
So tell me, Gareth, you predicted that Bitcoin will go down even lower. And then what happens? Like, is this, for how long this dip will continue with crypto in your research there?
Yeah, so the big things in crypto, number one, it's de-risking, right? So when the stock market's declining, people just naturally sell cryptocurrency. Another factor is the US dollar. So as the dollar increases in value, which we've been seeing, it puts pressure on crypto as well. And I think the biggest one to me is the regulation that is inevitably coming, right? So we have to get regulation. We know the SEC head, Gary Gensler, he's been talking about regulation. What's a security? What's a commodity? And to me, that's the golden ticket. Like, we need the definitions of what the rules are going to be for crypto, because as long as we don't know, there's no big money that wants to buy. No one wants to, someone with $10 billion, they're not going to be investing a significant portion in crypto, not knowing what the rules and regulations are. So whether it's good, whether it's bad, whether it's neutral, doesn't matter. We need to know the facts, and then it's going to draw money in. So I think crypto has a chance to bottom in the next 6 to 12 months. I still think it's probably going at minimum down to about 12, 13,000, maybe lower than 10.
Bitcoin, right? Sorry, Bitcoin, right?
Bitcoin,
okay.
Correct. Sorry, I should have made that clear. But yeah, Bitcoin, but down to 12 to 13,000. And then I think at that point, you really start to slowly dollar cost average and accumulate down there. Because I'm a huge long-term bull on crypto. It's just, you have to understand the cycles, and we're in a bear market cycle. 4-year cycles are what Bitcoin has. And right now we're in the midst of it. And it's the first bear market where the Fed hasn't been printing money, which also means you have to be a little bit more careful, because you could argue that the printing of money maybe kept Bitcoin from going down as much in previous cycles. It's not happening this cycle yet. Maybe eventually they'll start again.
Okay, so would you say for like the next 3-4 years, we cannot really expect Bitcoin going up?
Yeah, so I don't think you should expect new all-time highs for the next few years. Yes. I think you're going to get
Okay.
big bounces where you could get back to 30, you could go to 20, you could go to 35, but it's going to be a lot of sideways chop until we kind of get a base, until we see that money printing come back in. And obviously the rules and regulations are really, really important.
So I want to ask you something that I didn't really written down here. Now, as far as real estate market, how is this connected to all of this? Can you say that certain charts that you follow, they have certain similarities with reacting on the real estate market?
Yeah, so that's exactly what it is basically real estate is referred to and is linked to risk assets. Now, people don't think about that, think about their home as being a risk asset. But the reason why it's linked is because when people are making money in crypto, when stocks are going up and people are making money in stocks, they have more money, they feel richer, and they're more likely to go out and purchase a home or a second home. And that's why that's tied. In addition, the key of low interest rates, right? Low interest rates was very good for the stock market. It's also very good for borrowing money to buy homes. So it's very much correlated with risk assets. And it's one of the reasons, at least here in the US, we're now seeing a dip in real estate because the Fed has been tightening so aggressively, and also because the stock market has fallen. So people don't feel like they have a lot of extra money.
So now, if someone has $100,000 now, and I know we don't want to give a financial advice, but let's just say the wisest way to approach that number in this moment, is it percentage-wise? Can you tell us what would be gold? Would there be any crypto at all in this, or cash? Or if cash, which cash, what currency?
Yeah, so I think for right, I mean, so again, time frame matters. Are you talking maybe the next year, or what are you thinking?
Yes.
For the next year? Okay, so I think
year or two.
Okay, so I think in the next year or two, right here, I'd be probably investing a little bit for the next at least 6 months in the euro, in the yen against the dollar. So I think the dollar starts to fade off of these near-term highs. I would also be a buyer of gold and silver down here. I think those are great assets to own right now. I wouldn't be a buyer just yet of Bitcoin, but if Bitcoin comes into the mid-teens, like 15,000, start to slowly accumulate and dollar cost average every 2,000 or 3,000 down from that point, and slowly accumulate a percentage of your portfolio there. And then I also think that there will be opportunities in some stocks as well, just not quite yet. By the way, one of the markets that I really am bullish on is Brazil. I think Brazil and South America, a lot of good stuff going on there. And I think those markets have been very much kind of kept at bay and kept down because the US stock market has been so strong. The same thing goes with the Chinese stock market, the Hang Seng. I actually am very bullish on that area as well.
So Gareth, here is my first question that will be at the end. Because BRICS, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and then soon maybe even Egypt and more African countries, maybe Turkey and maybe Saudi Arabia, who knows, but it's actually growing.
Yeah.
It looks to me like the future is in Asia, the future is in Africa, the future is in South America, right? So what you just said, Brazil and those countries, that actually Brazil is part of BRICS. This is the shift in power now. So you said Chinese yen, right? But any other currency from not Europe or US, would you consider for the long run to put money in?
Yeah, so I do think a little bit of money spread in some of these BRICS countries makes a lot of sense. If their economies start to get more power and get more powerful, then their currency should strengthen as well. So I do think that makes some sense as well. You just want to be careful of the geopolitical issues going on in certain countries. As again, we saw when Russia invaded, we saw a big collapse in the ruble, and then it bounced back sizably. But as a currency investor, you got to be really careful about those geopolitical implications.
Okay. Thank you so much for joining me today. Where people can find you, can you tell us? the best way to find you.
And thank you. It was a true pleasure to be here with you. And people can find me on Twitter at Gareth Soloway, so at my first and last name, or you can check me out at inthemoneystocks.com or verifiedinvestingcrypto.com.
And I will attach all the links down below the video. Thank you so much, Gareth, and thank you everyone for watching. And until next time.